Okay, so I'd like to start with a little presentation because we're finally beginning our foray into philosophy proper. This is a philosophy class. I know we were doing kind of some boring stuff the past few weeks, but the fundamentals are necessary for any critical thinking class, and we had to get through them. We're actually going to start to get into the interesting stuff now. And to do that, we're going to read a very simple introduction of philosophy. You're supposed to read the first 2 chapters today. Nagel's What Does It All Mean? But to understand what Nagel is doing, and what we're going to do for the rest of this class, I feel like I should give you some background, some perspective. So, as you should have remembered from one of the previous lectures, philosophy comes from 2 Greek words, philo and sophia. It translates to the love of wisdom. And arguably, it is the foundation of all human inquiry. That includes sciences, humanities, any questions you can imagine that have to do with figuring out how the world works. What is the truth? What's going on? If you're trying to answer those questions, you're doing philosophy. Okay? So, if you imagine kind of all the fields and disciplines that we have in college today, you know, political science, rhetoric, business and finance, engineering, mathematics, chemistry, biology, physics, all these different things. Just picture this in your mind, okay? A tree with all these different branches. Let's call this one physics. Let's call this one math. Let's call this one political science, whatever, chemistry. Any discipline that's trying to get to the bottom of things, okay? You can conceptualize philosophy as the trunk. In other words, the reason why philosophy is the trunk is because, generally speaking, it is the pursuit of truth, okay? That is what we're trying to do when we're doing philosophy. Get to the bottom of things. Figure out what the truth is. And we do this in a lot of different ways. We have a few different methods for doing this, as evidenced by how different these disciplines are, right? You don't utilize the same method for figuring out how the world works in physics compared to political science, right? Or other humanities disciplines. You can imagine philosophy as the field which tries to deal with the big questions or deep questions. Such as, what is the meaning of life? What makes an action moral or immoral? What is time? What is the proper form of government? What are the strengths and weaknesses of democracy or a constitutional monarchy? All of these different things are the purview of philosophy. It seeks to understand what the world is. However, it goes about doing this a little bit differently than the STEM fields. What do the STEM fields do? How do they try to figure out how the world works? Yeah. How do they try to figure out how the world works? Take science, for example. Numbers, there's a quantification aspect.
Through experimentation.
Experimentation, yes.
Specifically observable things.
Right, exactly. They are empirical. Empirical means has to deal with observation, using your senses. Okay? We might say, like, unlike STEM fields, which are observational and experimental, philosophy comes at these questions a little bit differently. What we're doing in philosophy is we're reflecting on questions. Primarily, we're utilizing thought. And we're utilizing thought to construct arguments, to construct reasons for why we should hold a certain position. You can imagine the philosophers of today as, if I could spell, as being something like puzzle solvers. Unfortunately, we are highly specialized, so we deal often with only one historical figure and their corpus, or we deal with specific problems in different fields of philosophy. But generally speaking, philosophy is what you're doing when you're investigating any questions, trying to figure out how the world works, what is the truth, trying to get behind the appearances. So we're not working with data that, we've used some scientific instrument to capture. It's all about using our capacity for thought, constructing arguments, tearing down arguments, trying to, justify our reasons and our views. That's basically how we do things. This is what we're going to be investigating the rest of this class. And as you'll see, this is not easy. It requires deep contemplation. It requires you to use your critical thinking skills. It requires you to think outside of the box. Unlike STEM fields, around which the primary theories, methods, instruments of the day, there is large consensus. There is not nearly as large consensus in philosophy. We have a bunch of different camps in a bunch of different fields arguing what the right view is and why. And when you write philosophy nowadays, basically you're throwing your hat in the ring. And you're saying, I have something to say about this. Here's why you should accept my view. Here's why I'm right. And it has to do with the strength of your arguments and the strength of your analysis. So, to engage in this ourselves, we're looking at a very gentle and short introduction to what the heck philosophy is. Nagel's What Does It All Mean? This book is not going to introduce you to every idea or figure in philosophy. But I think it's a great starting point, especially for a class like this, if you've never taken philosophy before. Because this shit is hard, and it's really confusing. And when you're doing the readings later in the semester, you're going to be like, what the hell is going on? What is this guy saying? So we're going to give you all a little bit of practice early on. Nagel's book only looks at 9 fundamental problems that we're still talking about in philosophy. And we're going to be going through them. Firstly, as you saw for the reading for today, knowledge of the world beyond our own minds. This is where we'll start. This is going to be related to the existence of other minds and how we can know other minds exist, what other minds are like, whether they're like our mind. Is the person sitting next to you, do they have the same kinds of experiences and thoughts that you do? How could we know that? We can't see into anybody's mind. It's thorny. We're also going to look at the relationship between the mind and the brain. Are these the same thing or not? We're going to look at the nature of language. What is language? Where did it come from? Why is language successful? How the hell can we communicate at all? Especially if we each have a unique mind that's seeing the world in a different way. How is that possible? And we're also going to get into what you might think are deeper questions. For example, does free will exist? What do we mean when we say free will? We're going to look at the nature of morality. Is there an objective standard of right and wrong? If so, where does it come from and what does it look like? How can we know what it is? Or is everything just relative? We're also going to look at justice. What is justice? Are inequalities unjust? If so, which ones? How do we know whether an action or a policy is just or unjust? Then finally, at the end of this unit, at the end of the book, we're going to look at death. What is death? Should we be afraid of it? And we're going to look at the meaning of life. Now, fortunately or unfortunately for you, philosophy has a bunch of different attempts at answers for all of these questions, but no concrete proofs. It's not like mathematics, okay, where you can prove a geometric theorem. So, as we go through the class, reflect on your own beliefs. What is it that you believe and why? Do you have good reasons for your positions? Engage with the topics that Nagel is going to be exploring. You've seen the structure kind of the chapters already. He's going to raise a question or an issue, and then a response to it, how we might understand it, how we might think about it, and then rebuttals to that response, and so on and so forth it goes. And it will go until we are all dead, because there are weird people like me who just like thinking about this stuff. His goal in this book is to introduce the reader to what philosophy is, how it does what it does, and potential answers to these questions. Can you read that? It's like I have a doctor's handwriting. He's going to look at possible answers to these questions and what's wrong with those answers, what their strengths and weaknesses particularly are. And what I'm hoping for the rest of this class, when we're going through these different case studies in philosophical works, that we're all going to have great discussions. I'm going to be doing a little bit of lecturing. It's not going to be nearly as much lecturing as I was doing the first few weeks. So I'm going to be dependent on y'all to actually do the readings and come to class ready to talk about them. Because how can we get to the bottom of any of this unless we talk about it and we air our thoughts and we present our arguments? All right? Any questions? Okay. Well, let's do an activity then. I want you all to group up with the people around you. I want you to discuss the reading. What did you think about the reading? How did it strike you? Write down one question that you have based on what you read for today. And then we'll reconvene and we'll start talking about this thing. Okay? All right, off you go. All right, what did you think about the reading? All right, do it next time. All right, let's reconvene. What did you all think about the reading?
Confusing.
Confusing?
Yeah.
Why was it confusing?
It just really made no sense how there can't be an answer to anything. Like how it's always uncertain.
Well, we shouldn't say there can't be an answer. Because hopefully there is, right? Whether or not we can prove to ourselves that that answer is right is a different question, right? But I hear you. Philosophy is tough. I mean, it's investigating the deep fundamental things that we take for granted. What do the rest of y'all think? Yes?
Who is Nagel and what's his credibility?
Good question. Nagel's a 20th century philosopher who's taught at Ivy League institutions for years, but I think he died in the 2000s, I think. So he's a student of philosophy. He was a philosophy professor. How does that make you feel? What does that make you think?
Makes me trust him more.
Okay.
Definitely. The fact that he's taught at Ivy schools.
Yes. Yeah. He seems to be an intelligent guy. What do the rest of y'all think? How did the reading strike you?
Sad.
Sad? Why?
Well, when you think about it, we were talking about this earlier. I don't remember the word, but it starts with an S. No. I don't remember what it was called, but basically it's when you're devoid of everything and you are thinking that everything could be a dream, nothing could be real.
Maybe you're thinking of solipsism?
Yeah, I think so.
The view that I'm the only mind that exists. Everything else out there, it could be a dream, could be a hallucination. Y'all could just be, robots that look like humans, functionally. Okay, one more reaction. What do you think about the reading? Yes?
I
I thought it was kind of frustrating in that it's impossible to argue with the solipsist, they're just an illusion of their mind. So in that sense, it's kind of annoying to be like, well, I guess. I mean,
Right. I mean, what are you going to say to someone who thinks they're the only person that exists in the world? You know? You might not be able to reach them at all. There are people like that, right? But hopefully through this class, you're going to get better at constructing arguments, at critically thinking, so that, yeah, you can challenge such claims. Because it doesn't seem like a plausible one, right? But again, how do we prove that there are minds outside of our own? Well, we're going to talk about some of this today, but mostly on Thursday. Somebody give me a question. What questions did you all have? What did you talk about in your groups? What question do you have about the reading? Yes?
Well, like, for skepticism, how do you compare like your skepticism to someone else's like around their topic? Like, do you both go the same way around questions, like questioning yourself?
So could you say a little bit more about that? Are you wondering if all of our skepticisms are like the same? Or
like, how would you determine if someone else's is like went to the same length that you did for your own argument? Because that probably comes through discussion though.
how do you think you might try to do that?
It would be through just I don't know, questioning someone else's. So they would eventually not have an answer or have an answer to all your questions if they did it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, presumably you try to talk to them, right? Ask them how they arrived at their position. You know, what reasons do you have, bro, for being skeptical? You know, how do you feel that way? What's going on? The best mode we have of, well, trying to work through these things with other people, trying to figure these things out ourselves, beyond just individual reflection, is communication. Actually expressing our thoughts, expressing our views and our reasons. So we're going to work on that a lot in these following weeks. How about one more question? Something we can put on the table and tackle, perhaps, today. Certainly the reading gave you a lot of questions, right? What do you want to know the answer to? Yes?
My question is, like, why do we keep, like, searching for these answers? Like, why does it matter so much for us to answer these?
That's a good question. There are a bunch of different stories or explanations that we might offer for this. I'll just give you one right now, and you can chew on it for the rest of the class, and we can kind of talk about it today. Aristotle said many years ago, man desires to know. So his response to this first question is, we just seem to have this inherent drive to pursue knowledge. Where that comes from, why we have that, there are different potential answers to that question, right? Is it just a weird artifact of our human psychology? Were we pre-programmed by some god with this drive? Well, maybe we can work out an answer as we reflect on and explore some of the topics today. But why does this matter? Don't you all want to know how the world works? Raise your hand if you don't want to know how the world works. No, you want to know, right? Because you want to do all these things. You want to get a job. You want to get a degree so you can make money and you can have a family and so you don't accidentally kill yourself or another person or so you do your job well, whatever it is, right? Now, the questions we're going to be investigating, they might not seem applicable or useful to, your practical life. But I assure you, the abstract questions that we're going to try to be answering have a direct impact on all your other views. Two of the deep fields in philosophy are metaphysics and epistemology. And this is what we're going to kind of start with today. Metaphysics is the study of the fundamental nature of reality. The heck is our universe like? Why does it work that way? What are we? How do minds work? What is space and time? And epistemology is the study of knowledge. What is knowledge? How do we acquire it? How do we lose it if we do lose it? What you think about the fundamental nature of reality and how we obtain knowledge of the world is going to have a direct impact on all your other views. For example, what you think is right and wrong and why. Whether you think the government is oppressing people, what the ideal political structure is, how business works. These fundamental fields inform everything else because everything else is kind of sitting on top of them. Ethics, political theory, anthropology, sociology, all those views that you have about those things. So that's why we're going to start with them. And it's going to get heady and it's going to get abstract, but let's try to flex ourselves a little bit, okay? Try to keep an open mind. Virtue of a good critical thinker. Okay, so what does Nagel say in chapter 2? This chapter is titled, How Do We Know Anything? Well, how do we know anything? What different potential answers does he go through? First of all, how do you know you're in this classroom right now? You see it. Okay, so you're having some kind of experience of being in the classroom. We might say, you smell things that are classroom-like. You're hearing something that's classroom-like. Nagel starts off by describing, the fundamental position that we have in the world. How we know things at all. Everything, he says, is filtered through our experience. It's filtered through our minds. This is all we have to go on, he says. Our experiences and thoughts, what he calls feelings and sense impressions. What do you think he means by this? Just throw out answers, guess. Yeah.
Like there is no way to sort of know for sure what another person is experiencing beside yourself.
Why?
Because you're in your own mind and
Think of it this way. Yeah, good response. When you drive to campus, well, fundamentally, what are you doing? When you're looking around at the grocery store, what are you doing? When you're in a class listening to me lecture, what are you doing? Well, you're having experiences about the world, right? You have a unique subjectivity, or mind, or soul, whatever you want to call it. And you're feeling things. Your sense organs are giving you information. Your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth. These are what we call sense impressions. You're tasting, smelling, touching, hearing things. But you're looking at the world. You're approaching the world from a unique perspective. In a unique body. With a unique constellation of views and values and preferences. But everything that you're experiencing, Nagel says, is filtered through your individual mind. And everything you think, too, is that way too. If we want to talk about sense impressions, right? Your sense organs are being stimulated by things in the environment, and they're sending information to your brain that processes that information. If we want to talk about, feelings, where are your feelings occurring? Are they occurring out there? Oh, they're occurring in here, right? Whatever this is, whatever you are, this mental thing. Your thoughts, where are they occurring? In the desk? Are your thoughts in the desk? No, where are your thoughts? Right here, right? Or maybe your mind isn't here. Maybe it's like here. I don't know. Everything you think, feel, and experience is filtered through your own mind. Now, this raises a question. What question does it raise? You have a guess?
The objectivity of your own mind.
Okay, say more about that.
Kind of like, if you're already at the point where you're like, I can't validate anything but my own mind, but your mind is kind of constructed by the world around you, then what basis do you have to trust that?
Right. If everything is filtered through our own unique mind or subjectivity, whatever you want to call it, does it actually represent the world out there? Well, can we actually figure out what the world is like outside of our own minds? What do the contents of our minds, what can they say? Or what do they prove, if anything, or not prove, show or not show? Well, here's one potential answer to this question. Nothing. Whatever is going on in your own mind is the only thing that's real. That's the only thing you can know for sure. You can know what your experience is. You can know what your feeling is. But you can't know that anything out there is real or true or like the way they say it is in history and science textbooks or financial classes. This view, as we've already noted, is kind of solipsistic. Can someone remind us, what is this view? Yes.
Saying like nothing is real, only your mind is like you're the only person.
Right. Exactly. It's the view that one's own mind is the only thing that exists, or the only thing that we can prove or that we know exists. All right, let's open it up. What do we think about this? Do you like this view? Is it intuitive? Do you believe it? Adrian?
I think it's a kind of skewed thing looking at it, a skewed way of looking at it, just because, yeah, that could be a way to look at the world, but then that could lead to maybe not so great actions because you think, oh, I'm the only thing that's real, nothing I do matters. Let me go streak in the streets butt naked. You know?
Ah, okay. So maybe you might worry like, well, maybe there's something to this view, but like, it's not going to lead to a good life.
Probably not.
Yeah, maybe you run around naked because nobody else is real. You're like, I just get to play in this simulation. I'm the only thing that exists. Everything else, everybody out there, they're not even people. They're just like simulation programs or something. Yeah, what do you think?
It just seems too extreme. Like,
Why?
it's the only thing that exists. Maybe it's like, I don't know, like a version of solipsism that I can relate more is like, the mind is the first thing, like your own mind is the first thing that you can prove exists, not the only thing.
Okay, so you take issue kind of with, the radical nature of this claim, right? My mind is the only thing that exists. Let me play devil's advocate. Prove that the desk in front of you exists.
Well, first use your senses.
Okay. Are your senses reliable, or have they deceived you in the past?
I can tell they've been pretty good.
Why do you say that?
Because I would say most of the observations that I make through my senses are trustworthy and have not fooled me.
Okay.
Upwards of like 90.
Yeah, you think they're trustworthy,
Yeah.
right? Would you still call your senses trustworthy if you were living in a simulation?
To a point.
Like we're living in the Matrix right now.
Well, how would you determine that we're living in a matrix?
How would you determine that? How do you know you're not sleeping right now and having a vivid dream?
I wish.
How do you know you're not a brain in a vat somewhere, that the machines are harvesting your energy and you're in a simulation? How could we know any of that? How could we know anything outside our own minds? What do y'all think? Are you persuaded by my skeptical argumentation? Why not? Doesn't look like you're persuaded.
Skeptical is only questions. It's not like, I don't know, there's obviously we're not going to deal with too much empirical evidence, but the argument by itself doesn't seem as real as others.
Okay, what do the rest of y'all think? Is there a high chance you're actually dreaming right now? Or in a simulation?
I like how the dream said it. The issue of that is to assume that there's something to wake up from, or there's like an outside world or reality, but the issue of that is that you also have to prove that as well. So it kind of falls apart there.
Okay. Say a little bit more. Why does it fall apart?
Because, well, if you want to prove that this reality exists and you wake up from it, and there's another reality out there, you also have to prove that reality, and which is creates the issue of just going in circles where you're just trying to prove something that's, well, should also be proven, but you can't.
Right, yeah, Nagel kind of walks through exploring this question, right? Well, yeah, what does this view claim? That our mind is the only thing that exists. You might ask, how do you know that? You might bring skepticism to bear on the skepticism. Let's say, for example, you think we are in the Matrix. Everything you see around you is illusory. It's being shown to you because there are wires connected to your brain or whatever. I'm not actually here. These desks aren't actually real. But if you think that everything is an illusion, again, that implies that there's some real reality outside of it. But what reason do you have for thinking that there's a real reality outside of it? The strange thing about skepticism is it can be brought to bear on itself. We might think that this position is a leap in logic. At least this is the kind of track that Nagel takes. Even if we grant that, look, every experience and thought we have is filtered through our own minds, does that mean there's nothing else out there? Does it prove there's nothing else out there? Well, no, right? It would be a non sequitur. Even if you thought your own experiences and thoughts were the only reliable way to figure out how the world works, to assert nothing else exists seems like a leap, right? Because a lot of people do think it's a leap. They take a less radical skeptical position sometimes. Let's call it external world skepticism. These people think, okay, yeah, maybe there are other minds, there are other people, other things out there. But we can't know what it's like, really. We don't know for sure if that's actually a desk that we're seeing, if a desk is actually there. We can't be sure that we're not, actually dreaming right now. We can't be sure that we're not in a simulation. So this external world skepticism view says that we cannot know anything beyond our own impressions and experiences. Why? Because the only thing we have access to is our own thoughts and feelings and experiences. There's no proof that the external world out there exists the way you think it does, the way you take it for granted. Okay, get back in your groups for 2 minutes. Talk about this view. What do you think of this view? Is it intuitive? Do you like it? Or are you like, screw that? Okay, go ahead. What do you guys think? You agree? Yeah, why do you like this view, or why do you agree?
experiences like impressions and whatnot. Like, I don't really know what goes beyond that.
Okay.
And I think if I were to try to explain it, it would all just tie back to my own experiences.
Yeah, yeah. So this view is going to say, like, look, we think there are cars out there and tables and chairs. We think USF is organized in a particular way. You know, we think there's real things like cash and tires and trees, but we can't actually prove that any of that is like what we think it is. Because the only thing we have access to is what's going on in here. Does that seem intuitive to you guys? Or no? You can disagree. A lot of people think this is a stupid view.
Reading about what Nagel said.
So you disagree with this view. You think that there are other reliable things or things that you can count on to know the world besides your own thoughts and feelings.
I think it's important to rely on numbers primarily, but
Like, your mom can give you good advice, and it can be reliable maybe. You can take it to the bank. Or maybe sometimes, what the textbooks tell us. Maybe you might think that's reliable sometimes. If you think that we can depend on that stuff, you're going to disagree with this view. Because this is a pretty radical position, right? It says we can't prove anything outside of our own minds. But you might think there are a lot of things that we can prove. Yeah, think about that a little bit. Okay, what do y'all think?
You talked about how, like, you're never, like, satisfied when you're, like, skeptical of this because if you, like, do something, like, but, like, why? Or not necessarily, like, because you're going to be, like, saying there's no possible way, but, like, you're going to be
Yeah.
more, like, why?
Yeah? Well, let me ask you this. Do you think there are real trees out there, outside? Yes. Okay, so it seems like you disagree with this view. Because this view would say the only thing you can know is what's going on in here. You can't prove that anything out there is like what you think it is.
That's true, technically, like, you can't prove anything, but that doesn't mean you have to, like, live by that. You can still live. I don't think you should, like, that doesn't matter. Although you can't prove it, like, so what?
You might think, like, look, I still have to go to my job.
Yeah.
Like, I still have to pay my bills. Like, you might think, why are we even questioning this? Like, I still have to deal with all this shit, But a lot of people find this not only convincing, but perhaps liberatory. Because it takes the pressure off of us, trying to work it all out. They're just like, well, I can't know it anyway, so I'll just do what I'm going to do.
Well, that's also, like, you should know that you can't control everything, and, like, you shouldn't worry about things that are out of your control. But you should, like, if something's in your control, you need to work, like, be locked in, I don't know.
Right, yeah. Well, that's a very pragmatist view. Okay, let's bring it back up here. What do y'all think about this view? You think it's true? It sucks? Who else is saying it sucks?
I mean, it's another cannot know anything beyond our own mind. So too extreme.
Okay, yeah. So you think again it's like it's too radical. It's making too strong of a claim, perhaps? How else would you respond to this? Yeah.
Well, it sounds as if it's an argument for solipsism. It sounds like solipsism is like the claim, and that's almost the argument for it.
Yeah, you might think, there are different levels of skepticism. solipsism, I would think, is kind of a stronger version of this. What this is basically just saying is, like, look, you can't know for certain that the world is the way you think it is. Because again, the only thing you can know is what's going on in here. So when I frame it that way, what do y'all think? You can't know for sure that the world is out there, the world is the way you think it is. Yeah.
But then you don't have, I wouldn't say you have proof that the world is different than what you're seeing.
Okay. Say more about that.
Because everything you've experienced creates this worldview. Then you haven't experienced things that would discredit it.
Could you give me an example?
Like, since, I don't know, like if I keep walking past like a tree and I ask someone about it and they also see it, everything I've experienced contributes to that tree being there.
Right, you're having some kind of experience of a tree. But how do you know it's actually a tree?
Just layers of like reassurance from others.
So you're conditioned into seeing and treating it as a tree, maybe?
Precisely.
Is that enough reason for us to say, yeah, we know for sure that's a tree?
But then you're also looking at someone else's mind, though. So if you can't prove that someone's mind is real, how can you prove that they're proving you?
It's an interesting question. I mean, we could be in a simulation right now, right? And then the thing that you see is a tree, well, it's not a tree, right? It's like ones and zeros or whatever, right? How else might you respond to this? Somebody comes up to you and they're like, I don't believe in anything, bro. All I know is what's going on in my own mind, man. You're out there, working a job. There aren't no jobs. There are no cars or trees. What would you say to that person?
Get hit by a car.
You're going to get hit by a car?
Just try it. If it's not real, it won't hurt you.
Okay. Yeah, what else might you say?
That's cool.
You might just be like, I'm not talking to this guy anymore. Right?
How's life under the bridge?
Oh. You think there are bridges, man? Do you remember how Nagel kind of responds to this? What argument or reason might we give that challenges this? If you were trying to convince someone out of this view, what would you say? Yeah.
I don't know if this is what Nagel said, but it's just what I think. Like, even if you think nothing's real, like, you still have to deal with it in real life.
Okay, yeah, so kind of like a pragmatic position. Maybe you will say, like, okay, we can't prove anything out there is the way we think it is. But, like, practically or realistically, we still have shit to do. Like, I gotta go to my job. I have to survive. I don't want to get hit by a car. I don't want the stupid seagulls taking my French fries. Okay, so I live and act according to certain ways. Maybe I can't prove it to you, but it seems like there are some things that are real, I can't give you the level of proof that you want, but I have the level that's good enough for me. Maybe that's an okay view, an okay response. The one that he entertains is the common sense response. Well, what would you say to someone who says this? You might say something like this. Well, where do our ideas and experiences come from? It's stuff in the world causing me to have ideas and experiences. Where else would they come from? There has to be an external world causing my impressions and experiences. This is the commonsensical view, right? If I touch you with a hot iron, what causes you to get burned? Why do you feel a burning sensation on your skin? Well, because something outside of you caused you to have that experience. It touched you, right? Everybody is seeing white walls, right? Everybody's seeing a flag. What's causing you to have an image of a flag in your field of vision? Well, it's the flag, right? There's something out there that's causing you to have a certain experience. What do you think? Is this convincing response? If it's convincing, yay. If it's not convincing, nay, boo. Okay, 3, 2, 1. I'm seeing some downs, I'm seeing some ups. Okay, yays. Why do you find this convincing? There are no wrong answers here. Just tell me what you're thinking. Yeah.
So everybody else is experiencing the same thing as I'm experiencing right now. So they're looking at the flag, and I'm also looking at the flag. They can verify that it's a flag, so can I. So I guess that's how.
Yeah, there's like shared perception happening, right? You could ask everybody in this room, hey, do you see that flag? And they're all going to be like, yeah, right? You can verify your experiences through communication. Other people will back you up. Yeah, we seem to all be experiencing the world in a similar way, right? You all see a marker right here, right? You all see me sitting here. You see the desks. You see the water bottle, right? Yeah, okay.
So on top of the shared experience, I just haven't heard a convincing enough argument to disprove it.
To disprove what?
That through like experiencing the world through impressions and experiences is false or could be disproven. Like I've been seeing someone give a big enough argument like why this desk isn't because everyone feels the desk. No one can walk through it.
Okay. But that might just be because you've been conditioned into a particular view, right? And educated in that. But everybody could be wrong. Do you have good reasons for your view? Do you have good justifications for it? That's what we're seeking in philosophy. We're all educated and raised to have certain ideas about the world, right? Whether it's your religion or the politics that you subscribe to. But do you have good reasons for your views? Have you actually reflected on them? Well, that's what we're going to be doing, hopefully, in this class. You're going to be encountering views like this that are going to push you to think, do I actually have good reasons for my views? And the fact of the matter is, well, at least from my perspective, there's something very intuitive about this view, right? I mean, how could we prove that there's this table here and it is the way we think it is? How can we prove we're not dreaming right now? How can we prove USF is real, right? Or that we're not in a simulation? You might think it's silly to ask these questions. But again, what we're seeking when we do philosophy are good reasons, justifiable reasons and arguments for our views. Now, some of y'all think this is a good response, right? Well, what picture is this response painting for us? Well, something like this, right? There's you, and you're chilling, and you're having certain thoughts and experiences. Let's say you feel the air in the room moving around you, okay? And outside of your own mind, there's this whole world, and there's stuff happening in the world that causes you to experience that. This is the general picture, right? But the skeptic can fire back in a number of ways. If this is the picture that you have, they'll ask you this: how can we tell what the world is like based on our experiences? Because what is this view implying or saying? Well, what it's saying is that, this response, is that you have an idea or an image or a sensation in your head, and you can trust that sensation or that idea or that image to tell you about the world. Why should we presume that? Why should we trust what our senses are telling us? Do we have good reason to? What do you think? Do we have good reason to trust what our eyes and ears and nose and mouth are telling us? Yeah.
I don't think we have any verifiable good reason to go beyond our mind. It kind of reminds me of what Descartes said. The only thing you know is you exist. I think therefore I am. So I think that's kind of the limits of what we can objectively perceive.
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like you're kind of just accepting the skeptical position.
Yeah. It's not an exciting one. I'd prefer if I could have some sure way to not be able to just trust my own mind, but so far I can only perceive what's in my own head, I guess.
What do the rest of y'all think? We have a skeptic. How do you know your senses are reliable and that they tell you about the world?
I don't know if this fits, but almost like a cause and effect. Like if you put your hand on a burning stove, you're going to feel the reaction off of it. And if any one of us did it in the class, everyone would feel that.
Okay. So yeah, again, there's this. Look, it seems like we can verify our experiences with others. And not only that, but our experiences are similar. So you're thinking something like, look, maybe at the start we should view our senses skeptically. But I can talk to other people, and they experience the same things that I do. And you might think, I'm not dead yet. So I must have some sufficient grasp of what's going on out there. Y'all find this convincing? Seeing some nods? Or no? Yeah.
I think not, just because skepticism, and no matter how far you fall down the rabbit hole, is just kind of the belief in what you can't prove. But in that way, it doesn't really offer evidence. It offers the lack of evidence to believe in anything. But in that way, it's not like the foundation of a real belief. It's the foundation of no belief.
Okay.
And so in that sense,
Okay, because it doesn't offer you anything? It doesn't do anything for you?
Yeah, it builds on nothing. It builds on the fact that you can't build anything. And in that way, it offers you nothing. It's the kind of thing where it's like, well, if the world is a matrix, we still need to fix the problems we have. You know? So.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you could think something like this. Okay, I see your point, skeptic. I can't prove that things are the way we think they are, that we're in real reality, that we're not asleep right now. Maybe I can't prove any of that to you. But, like, look, there are things I want to do. There are things I want to accomplish. There are things I need to take care of. And not only would this view get in the way of that, but, yeah, it doesn't leave me with anything. Might even make you depressed and nihilistic, maybe. Right? If you engage with the material in this class, you should have an existential crisis or two. Although I do not wish that on you. The skeptic can fire back with a lot of different questions. And Nagel goes through even a stronger version of this and how we might respond to skeptics. But kind of notice what we've done here. We haven't shown that this view is false, right? We haven't proven that it's false. Instead, what we're kind of doing is, you might think we're taking a little bit of a leap of faith. Because when you walk out that door today, you're not going to rationally calculate and prove that the ground beneath your feet isn't going to allow you to sink. You're just going to walk out the door, right? You're just going to go on living your life, maybe talk about this weird question to your friends and family members, but you're still going to keep doing what you're doing, right? You're going to trust your senses. You're going to trust that, in a lot of ways you can get to the bottom of things. Can we ever prove that the senses are reliable? Can we ever prove that our reasoning is working correctly so that when we use it, we're actually discovering the truth? I'm not sure. But it seems like we have to use those things if we're going to go on, right? So, I don't know, maybe we just reject this because, again, it doesn't leave us with anything, and there are pragmatic reasons for not accepting it. In any case, we're going to be looking at questions like these throughout the course of the semester. And in reading this first book, Nagel is going to offer us a bunch of different arguments, a bunch of different views, but there are a few that we're going to start with, a few questions that we're going to start with. I'd like you, when you're doing the reading for Thursday, to think about these questions and to really reflect on whether the arguments and the responses to those arguments, whether the answers to these questions are good, whether or not you're convinced by them, and why, whether you're convinced by them or not. First, is it a meaningful possibility that the only thing that exists is what's inside our own minds? Possibility of that. Second, think about the picture I had up here again. Are the images and the ideas in your mind, do they accurately represent what's out there? Do they describe reality well? Or not? Do we have any proof that there is a world outside of our own minds? Abbreviating external. And finally, if we can't prove it, can we still justifiably believe that there is a world out there and it is these certain ways, even if we can't prove it? So when you're doing the reading for Thursday, think about these things. Really reflect on the answers that are offered to these questions, the reasoning, the argumentation. And for Thursday, I want you to come to class, having written down 2 questions that you have about the reading. It could be anything. What does this word mean? What is Nagel trying to get at here? Why is he bringing up this argument or topic? This class isn't going to work unless y'all participate and express your thoughts, okay? So hype yourself up before you walk in on Thursday morning, all right? Okay, questions, concerns, comments? Okay, I'll see you next time. Have a good one. If you didn't forget to sign the attendance sheet, make sure to sign it before you leave. Thank you.